Tonight, national security vows to make the country unattractive for terrorist groups as it holds emergency meeting with religious organizations as part of a strategy to enable them detect threats of terror.
I'll tell you what, the security agencies are wide awake. It's not all matters that we see that we put into the public domain.
Minority in Parliament files application to summon Interior Minister to answer questions on what they say is the increasing state of insecurity in the country.
Made an urgent application before the Speaker of Parliament to invite the Honourable Minister for the Interior to appear before this House and brief the House on the current security situation in our country.
The minority there will be bringing you reactions from the majority as well. Top story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans, your success, our passion. Gasem, the nation builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready. And Nationwide Medical Health Insurance, your healthcare family. I am Gifty and Apia. Tonight, the national security has vowed to make the country unattractive for terrorist groups exploiting Ghana's porous borders. Over the past 3 days, the Counterterrorism Unit has been meeting with various stakeholders in the northern parts of the country where threat levels have been high. There was an emergency meeting today here in Accra with religious leaders as part of a nationwide strategy to enable them detect threats of terror. In the last 2 weeks, 2 men from neighboring Burkina Faso have been arrested in the country with loaded guns. The national security says it is now time to engage Ghanaians on how to detect and deal with any terror threat. Director of Counterterrorism, COP George Esiama, tells Joy News these terrorist groups seem to be more focused in their approach. Take a listen.
And because of sharing borders, traditional borders with these countries, people even in Brunei, for example, someone may have a farm across the border. So you may not know who will enter, who is not going to enter,
So clearly it is very difficult to identify an individual who is likely to pose as a threat to the country.
Yes, but if the people are vigilant, they can have another eye to look at it. But then I'll tell you what, the security agencies are wide awake. It's not all matters that we see that we put into the public domain. In Ghana, we have a counter-terrorism framework, with a philosophy of multi-agency, multi-disciplinary approach, where we have the military, the police, and all of us coming together to study the menace and find ways to deal with it. It is not all matters that we bring to the public domain.
I think there is one thing that Ghanaians are expecting from the national security, and of course, all the security agencies. One quick question is, are we safe as the national security? Are Ghanaians in good hands of the national security and that they can prevent any terrorist attack?
Ghana, I can say we are safe because we are working very hard with our international partners. We are not working, it's a global menace. We have our partners here and there. We have an intelligent community also deep on the ground, But at the same time, we need to sensitize the public because like fighting crime, like any crime, you need the cooperation of the people, the populace to fight crime.
But the question is, since it's difficult to identify these individuals, how do you even fight them? Because it is difficult to even identify them and then they get into the country.
Well, they come into the country, you have to educate the people, to know the nature of the threat and to be sensitive and to be vigilant. If the people are vigilant, then it's one surest way of countering the threat. But if the people do not take things for granted, then we can be taken unawares. So in Ghana, we have that framework in place. We have an action plan, and very soon we are going to roll out, educational awareness program for all the country, every part of the country. We have started in Accra. We went to the 3 northern regions. We'll be going to all the regions, to the nook and crannies. It's a battle for all of us. But we cannot say that we are at a serious threat, but we cannot wait to be taken unawares. We are taking preventive measures because our framework is based on 4 pillars. That is to prevent, preempt, protect, and to respond. And to respond, you respond and then recover from it. It needs a lot of resilience. But right now, we are trying to prevent it and also to preempt it so that the security agencies are taking measures so that if the terrorists will not get opportunity to strike at all. They need an opportunity. They may send spies here to come and see what we are doing. But if they see that they don't have local spokespeople, they will not come and attack us. They are attacking Burkina and other places because they get local support. The terrorists come and feed on what is around. They need logistics. They can't get it from the people. If the people cooperate with them, so that if you send other people not to cooperate with these people who come in and in the work of trying to do certain things, if you are wide awake and they don't get support, they cannot thrive here. So we don't want to give them the space, but at the same time, we also don't want to give space to the media, you see, to give messages that will terrorize the masses. Ghanaians are safe.
That is the Director of Counterterrorism with National Security, COP, retired COP George Esiama there. Ghanaians are safe, he says. My colleague Kwesi Parker Wilson was there at this meeting. He joins me in the studio now. Parker, give us an insight into this meeting. How did it go?
Okay, so for the religious bodies and, of course, the security personnel who were in this meeting, it was quite revealing for them, especially the religious organization, because there were certain things that they didn't know about. Now, because of this meeting, they have had all the appreciation. And Gifty, let me say that they spent about close to 6 hours in this meeting. And just as we heard the retired COP say that this was necessitated because of the imminent threat, because of what's happening in Burkina Faso. Now, the operations of the terrorist groups might not change, or perhaps they don't work in one way. Maybe today they're attacking churches, tomorrow they might attack marketplaces or even school buildings and all of that.
So it's basically unpredictable.
So what they are doing, and of course not just going to rest with the religious organization, they'll move on to other institutions as well to help them appreciate the act of terrorism. I mean, individuals who perhaps might pose as a threat to the country, so that when they see any suspicious behavior, they can quickly rectify and prevent the act.
So they can read through these behaviors. Was this a training of sort for these religious organizations?
Yes, that was a sense we got this afternoon, that it was sort of a training for this religious organizations, because they did not have the security appreciation. And so the essence of this training was for the national security to help them appreciate that, so that, as I mentioned, they can easily detect any act of terrorism in the countries. And then probably when they see that things are not going well, what they need to do, what they need not to do, even their church members or their congregants, what they need to do to ensure that they prevent all of these issues in the activities across the country.
So essentially they're training these religious leaders so they can in turn pass on this training about security consciousness to their people when they go back. Tell us about the religious leaders who were in attendance. Who were they?
Well, so we know that the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission President, the Cali Bishop Conference, the Christian Council, and other individual churches too were there. For them, they're really enthused about today's exercise, because they would have to go and pass on the information to their congregants. Now, one of the things that, according to them, they learned was how to develop what they call a comprehensive strategy within the churches and also the mosque. Good. And they're going to identify young men in these establishments to ensure that at least they can safeguard the entrance and the exit points of these institutions, and also watch out or look out for any unsuspecting character or behavior. So for them, all the fears that they had that perhaps they are not safe, with this training, they can confidently say that they are safe. So we spoke to a number of them, and let's listen to them.
The fears that actually was in me before I came here, with the engagement and the discussions, my fears are gone. So I now think that I have a lot to do, because how to spread this back at my region is another big challenge to me. But I think what I've heard today does relieve my fear from before I came. I think I know the science now, and I know their tricks, and I know the awareness creation. what to do and all that. So I know that if I get home, I have a plan for the diocese. I will have to prepare my plan and see how better I can educate my people on this.
It's kind of encouraging that you are taking these measures to give a sense of security and also make us also owners, not just as stakeholders, in tracking down and helping to avert this situation should it happen.
So would you say that this has allayed all your fears?
I would say so, because the information they are giving us make us feel like that they are on top of their job. However, they also need our support. That's what they told us. If we help them with all the information, with all the, what they call it, sensitization among the general populace, not only the Catholic, but wherever we find ourselves, we should conscientize people that they should be on alert for any activity, any street person in our area. We should be concerned, and then it will help.
So, Parker, these are some of the religious leaders who were at the meeting that you meeting that you spoke to. Did you get a sense that they were completely satisfied with this engagement and how it will translate to security in their churches?
Yes, I was, in fact, engaging them. I was under the impression that they were satisfied, completely satisfied with the engagement and the training they received, and of course the education they received today. And for them, you can't really determine or predict what's going to happen, but of course when they are vigilant, when they are on the lookout, they can easily prevent some of these terror attacks. And so with the kind of training that they have received today, is going to help them, because some of them were even talking about installing CCTV cameras in their churches and also in the mosques. And as I mentioned to you, they're going to identify the young men to also help the situation. So for them, they are completely satisfied with what happened today.
Kwesi Parker Wilson there, who has been following this meeting by the National Security with religious bodies looking to safeguard the country against any terror threat. But all of these processes have been follow a trip actually by the General Officer in charge of the Northern Command of the Ghana Armed Forces. As we indicated earlier, up north there has been high levels of threats there already. And so the General Officer has been touring some of the areas, assessing the security situation. Rafiq Salam has a report from there.
Brigadier General Francis Ofori, in an interaction with leaders of selected youth groups, opinion and religious leaders in Tumu, urged hoteliers and landlords to check the background of their clients.
Also, we have people who have houses or rooms that they rent out. Don't be focused or fixated too much about the money that is coming to your pocket to the detriment of the community. We're not saying don't rent, but at least you must do a little background check on that individual before you rent out the accommodation. I hope it is clear.
He is aware of the country's porous borders and hence that there are plans to put a lid on them.
People streaming across the border. And you know our borders are very porous. I'm sure you know that. When you go to some of the places, I won't tell you. I will not tell you. We have noticed that some places where, there are no immigration or custom personnel there to be able to man the place. But we have noticed a lot of those, and we are beginning to seal them. Sealing them in the sense of monitoring, keeping an eye over some of these things. So that what goes in and comes out, we are able to have some measure of control over those things.
His last stop was Hambly, and he visited Ghana's Hambly border with Burkina Faso and interacted with security personnel there. He rounded off his day's itinerary by meeting off camera the leadership of the Hambly Roman Catholic Church and the man whose alert led to the arrest of the 51-year-old Burkinabe gunman.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam, Hambly.
That's a song by some soldiers there, and they're looking to kill all the terrorists, it appears. Well, it's all about boosting their morale for the work on the ground. We're hoping to get the Catholic Church, because it appears that Catholic churches have been the target of these terrorist threat. Let's head to Parliament before that, where the minority is pushing for the summoning of the Interior Minister Ambrose Derry to appear before the House to answer questions on what they say is increasing state of insecurity in the country. The minority spokesperson on Foreign Affairs, Okujeto Ablakwa, says recent incidents of kidnapping of Canadian citizens in Kumasi and an Indian, as well as the Estonian diplomats, are worrying.
Made an urgent application before the Speaker of Parliament, the Right Honourable Professor Michael Okoye, to invite the Honourable Minister for the Interior to appear before this House and brief the House, and for that matter, the entire nation, on the current security situation in our country. You do know that as we speak, the 3 Takrady girls have still not been found. And as one would have thought that we will be expecting some good news about the finding of these 3 young ladies, we are increasingly hearing of more kidnappings. As we speak, 2 Canadians have been kidnapped in the Ashanti regional capital of Kumasi. This matter has gained international prominence. Sadly, we are in the news again for the wrong reasons. It's all over. It's being reported on the BBC, on Al Jazeera, in the Guardian newspaper, in the Washington Post, the Independent newspaper in Canada. It's created a lot of apprehension. You know that it has led to Canada revising its travel advisory to Canadian citizens. And you do know the implications of this new travel advisory, asking Canadians and, for that matter, foreigners who wish to visit Ghana to be wary of the spate of kidnappings going on. As ranking member on the Committee of Foreign Affairs, I'm particularly worried that this latest kidnapping of the 2 Canadians comes in the wake of a recent kidnapping incident of an Estonian diplomat. Before then was also kidnapping of an Indian businessman. And so it does appear that something which is very rare, very un-Ghanaian, is beginning to look like a new way of crime which the perpetrators are carrying out with such bravado. And so far, no arrests have been made, no prosecutions have been made.
Okujeto Ablakwa there is minority spokesperson on Foreign Affairs. Well, the majority leader, Osei Mensah Bonsu, downplayed the claims that there is a trend that shows insecurity. The speaker directed that leadership meets to agree on appropriate date and time for Mr. Ambrose Derry to appear. But listen to what transpired on the floor.
Yes, we spoke about having a joint caucus meeting, and unfortunately, it had to do with the days when both the minority leader and myself were to be available in the House. When we thought that we would have it on Thursday, unfortunately, as you do know, yesterday he gave an indication that he was outside. Then I also had to attend cabinet, even after we engage ourselves in some winnowing exercise. So yesterday wasn't a good day.
Well, we'll bring you that interaction and how it went on the floor. Apologies for not bringing you that in this one. But let's get on the lines now. The ranking member on Foreign Affairs Committee, Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, is on the line with me now. Mr. Ablakwa, thank you for your time this evening. Well, the majority in Parliament think that you're probably exaggerating the level of insecurity you talk about.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you and good evening to all our listeners. I think that all of us must appreciate that what is going on in our country is worrying. And when we raise these matters as representatives of the people, it is not because we want to be alarmist or we want to exaggerate. If you consider the fact that the 3 Takrady girls have been missing now for several months and there is no hope in sight, and as we have all been praying and hoping that we will hear some good news, you know, we've been mounting pressure on the executive who have the mandate to ensure that we are safe in this country. We've been mounting pressure to hear some good news. And all we're seeing is that there are many other reported cases of kidnappings going on. You recall the case of the Indian businessman, the Estonian diplomat, and now the international media is awash with reports of the two Canadian volunteers who have been kidnapped in Kumasi. So you cannot call these developments an exaggeration. I mean, you can see a pattern is emerging where kidnappings are becoming a common feature.
And the word that you like to use is that it's becoming a trend, which the majority disagrees. But then when you make such public pronouncement, don't you think that you're fanning the flames rather than working or helping the security agencies to work on this on the quiet, since you say that it's giving us bad publicity internationally?
These kidnappings, unfortunately for us, are out there. It's in the international media, it's all over the place. There's already anxiety. I did not just make a public statement. I made an urgent application to the Right Honorable Speaker. The Speaker welcomed the application and ruled that he will meet with leadership and see how soon the Minister for the Interior can be summoned to appear before the House and brief the House and the entire nation on measures being taken to arrest the situation. So it's a member of Parliament carrying out his oversight responsibilities. It's not just, going into the middle of town and crying wolf or trying to raise alarm bells. Not at all. It is within the context of carrying out our oversight responsibilities, demanding action. We are the representatives of the people. You can imagine how traumatized the family of the Takrady girls are. You can imagine how, people who want to come to our country to invest. This year has been declared a year of return. We are expecting so much from our tourism receipts and all of that. When the Canadian travel advisory that has been put out is seen by people who had plans to come to Ghana, they will, want to change their minds. They will begin.
Really, if you look at the warning that the Canadian website, gives to its citizens, and you compare that to what other countries have done, the United States, for example, it's really not strange. And the Canadian embassy did update theirs yesterday, but really, the information they have there is not strange from the information they've had there over the period.
I'm surprised that you say that this is not strange. It is very worrying. It is troubling. All of us have to be concerned.
No, when I say it's not strange, I meant to say that the words that they use and the kind of crimes that they warn their citizens to expect. If you read the information they have there, it's not different from what they've had there over the period. I think what they're adding now is kidnapping.
They are adding a new, and if you read this and you read other assessment reports, which I have done, they are all describing the spate of kidnappings as rare. Ghana is not noted for this kind of crime, where people are kidnapped and ransoms are demanded. I mean, if this was happening elsewhere in other countries, which are noted for that, we can say that is quite normal, and that's why you and I have to be concerned, and it's the reason why I raised this matter today, which the Speaker welcomed, and the Speaker indicated that he will discuss with leadership and see how quickly the Minister for the Interior can be summoned to present a brief to Parliament. I think that it is important that we do not accept this new trend as normal, and we should not, as it were, allow those with responsibility to get off the hook. We must mount pressure, and we must demand action, and we must ensure that our country is safe. That's the mandate they have, and as the people's representatives, as Parliament responsible for carrying out oversight, we must ensure that the necessary pressure and intervention is brought to bear so that our country will be safe. We cannot accept this new normal.
This new normal
totally
cannot be
unacceptable.
accepted. But exactly what do you expect from the Interior Minister when he appears on the floor of Parliament that will decisively deal with this issue?
We're expecting something convincing. We're expecting him to point to new strategies. Clearly, what is happening now calls for a review of the whole security strategy, and there ought to be a response which will nip this in the bud as quickly as possible, so it does not escalate. And remember that when these things begin to happen, it means that all of us are targets, and normally they will begin to identify, high-profile targets, so that the ransom will be big, so that they can, make so much money out of it. And if you have too many of these kidnappings going on and they become unresolved, then kidnappers across in the sub-region and in countries that they are noted for these kinds of crimes will think that, well, Ghana is a good place to do business, and so they should all descend and continue to kidnap us and demand ransom and all of that. We will all be at risk. At risk. And so we want to hear something convincing. We want to hear that it's not business as usual. There's a new security response, a new strategy to nip this, spate of kidnappings in the bud.
Mr. Okudzeto, thank you so much. Okudzeto Ablakwa, there is a minority spokesperson on foreign affairs. I beg your pardon. We can now speak to the spokesperson of the Catholic Bishop Conference, Father Kofi Done. Father, thank you for your time this evening here on Top Story. Now, the Catholic churches in recent times seems to be the target for these terrorists. In fact, the warning that came from the security think tank pointed directly to your direction. What does this make you and all Catholics in Ghana feel? How does it make you feel?
Good evening, Gifty, and good evening to your listeners. It is a worrying situation, but the good thing is that it offers us the opportunity also to take actions that will enable us avert any possible attack on the churches throughout the country. We have had a decision about a month ago after we had a meeting with the National Security Minister. We were informed of some of the things we have to look for. So as a church, the conference has issued directives, and it was decentralized because respective bishops were asked to talk to their various members of the churches. And so security alert directives were sent out.
So speaking of which, we know that at the Christ the King parish here in Accra, there was at a point there was a ban on backpacks, and they had their own security arrangements. Was the ban on backpacks restricted to the Christ the King parish, or is it something that spreads across the country?
Christ the King Church was the first to have come out openly. Before then, we have had training of some members of the churches across parts of the country. And so it depends on the situation of the respective churches. It has become one of the things that we have decided to look out to. What we have done actually as a church is to train the people who provide internal security within church premises, and also bring our ushers to know what is happening so that they will be proactive.
Okay.
And so that is what. So it cuts across. That of Christ the King came out just because it's something that happened.
It cuts across.
Accra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you raise any specific concerns at the meeting, and were they addressed?
We, as I said, we met the minister about a month ago, and it was our request that a training of this sort be carried out to train trainers, and that is why today we have had this first part of the training. And as the one in charge of anti-terrorism unit at the ministry says, is going to go to the regions as well. But what we did today is to invite people from all the dioceses in the country to be part of this training, so that they can go back now and start the work they have to start before the continuation is taken out from the ministry.
Father Donate, thank you so much for your time this evening here on Top Story. Top Story is brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion. GASM, the nation builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready, and nationwide medical health insurance. Your healthcare family. My name is Gifty, and Apia Evans Menster is standing by to connect on the very big debate ongoing. Women empowerment. Did the president say anything wrong? Well, he says he'll settle the debates. Let's see.
It's time to